Well, the greatest challenge for the European banking system in this difficult phase is, of course, keep being part of the solution and not being the problem. This, of course, does not depend only on banks. So far, we have to say that all the policies measures put in place by almost all European governments, along with the national and European regulators and supervisors, have made this possible. Banks have been key actors and players in all the governments to avoid and prevent the COVID-19 crisis to expand and affect the real economy. So the next, challenge is to keep it this way and making sure that the banking system can keep granting liquidity to firms and households and to sustain the real economy. So this is definitely the biggest challenge as we entrust the banking system in the coming months. Well, let me first say that banks today, thanks also to the new rules that have been put in place, they are already solid and resilient. The vulnerability analysis that the SSM did last July showed pretty clearly that so far the banking sector, have been able and can withstand the pandemic-induced stress. Nevertheless, let's be clear, we know that there is still a lot of uncertainty. The uncertainty pertains, first of all, the future economic outlook, but also to the extent to which asset quality will be deteriorated in the coming months when the temporary measures will be lapsed. So the best way to make sure that banks keep playing, a leading role in the recovery is to avoid that their balance sheet being too burdened by impaired assets. Much has been done already in recent years. We all know that. Big efforts, big improvements, but a lot still has to be done. Of course, the first thing to do is to, create a secondary market for NPLs. But I think this will not be enough. We have to make sure that we will have mechanisms and institutions that are capable of making this market work properly. What does it mean? It means to have the courage to address the problem of compatibility of these new actors with the rules on crisis management on one hand and state aid on the other hand. These things have to be made compatible, and this will be the mission and the challenge of both national and European institutions will have to face in the coming months. But we now have an unprecedented challenge ahead. On one hand, we have to address the economic and social consequences of this crisis and making sure we create the condition for a strong recovery. On the other hand, we have to make sure that this recovery is linked to a sustainable transition and the digital transformation of our economy and society. I do believe that the Green Deal is key to achieve this balance, to reach our climate ambitions, and at the same time strengthening the single market and the cohesion within the European Union. Of course, to achieve that, we need a lot of public investment. However, we cannot make this transition without a strong involvement of the private sector, which could contribute by directing capital towards climate and environmental action. Now we are implementing the taxonomy regulation, which will help align the incentives towards genuine sustainable investments, but we need further actions. We know that, especially to enhance transparency and disclosure so the investors can have clear and consistent information. On this line, we will need to take further action on the non-financial reporting directive. That's what we are working on. This will be helpful to complement all the new legal obligations. And finally, just one last thing, we know that we will have to develop a forward-looking assessment on the sustainability-related financial risks that are related to investment. This will complement all the measures needed to accompany this transition and support it.